Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
None of us enjoy seeing a scene like this associated with a fun pastime. And as a keen sport diver myself, I find it particularly sad. In reality, the yearly fatality rate amongst sport divers has become alarmingly high. There are many reasons for this, including lack of experience, failing to work up to deeper dives on compressed air, complacency, peer pressure, bravado, alcohol, seasickness, and dehydration. Naturally, it's impossible to cover all these examples here, but the following scenarios will hopefully demonstrate some of the more common incidents that occur. They'll also show how simple mistakes can soon escalate into major problems.
There's a lot of goodies on this wreck, no messing, straight down to the goodies. I'm not coming back empty-handed.
Sounds good to me.
Kev, be sensible. It's the first deep dive you've done for ages.
There's a lot of goodies. Straight down, straight back.
Oh, and go easy on the booze tonight.
Oh, go on. We're here to enjoy ourselves. He's only having a drink.
Yeah, we're all supposed to be enjoying ourselves. Remember, Dave has been killed on this wreck in the past. And we should be taking stuff off it anyway. It's illegal. It should be declared.
Just leave it to the experts. Insurance experts.
Again.
They've got to be up early tomorrow to dive a wreck at 40 metres. Although the majority of sport divers are responsible enough to avoid too much alcohol before a dive, it is very easy to drink more than you intend when you're amongst a crowd of friends. But a hangover and dehydration are just two of the many things that can lead to problems during a dive. From the look of a couple of them, I'd hazard a guess they'll soon be parted from their breakfast. And I hope they've all worked up to such a deep dive on compressed air. I wouldn't mind betting that this is their first trip for a while. I wonder when that engine was last serviced.
Right, if you can make sure all your gear's stowed away okay. The weather looks pretty good today. It's going to take us about an hour to get out to the wreck, so if we sit back, it won't be long before we're there.
Last night. Get it off your chest. You'll be alright when we hit the water. Bad for you guys. You'll be alright.
How about radio check before we start diving time? Okay,
Southern Coast Guard, Southern Coast Guard, Southern Coast Guard. This is dive rib rebel, dive rib rebel. Can I have a radio check please, over?
Black one. Switch it on, Tom.
Yeah, well, I'm on 67. Southern Coast Guard, Southern Coast Guard, Southern Coast Guard. This is dive rib rebel. Can I have a radio check please, over? It's dead.
I don't worry. I've got the mobile phone. It's up again.
You sure?
Yeah. It's under the seat.
What about the...
That'll be alright. We've got this.
Yeah,
she's powered. She's alright. Let's go.
Okay. You alright if you say
ready
so?
to go diving, guys?
Not a good start. The portable VHF is a very important safety item. The radio and battery condition must be checked before leaving harbour, and spare batteries should always be carried. Never rely solely on a mobile phone, as blind spots can often occur. And although mobiles are fine as a backup, the rescue services can't get a direction finding bearing from them. A VHF radio should therefore always be carried.
Well, don't you think this tide's running just a bit too much for us? Oh, come on, Neil, you wanted a drift dive and it's going to slacken off soon, so let's get on with it, or we'll be here all day.
Looks as though we're in the right spot now, so do you want to start getting ready to drop in?
Okay.
You back two going first? Neil, right, I'm out of gear. So in your own time, you know, but preferably today.
Sometime today, mate.
Okay, yeah, it's out of gear.
Right, we're just coming up to the wreck now. Get ready to drop the line in. Right, we're over the top now. Drop the line. You sure you're all right to dive? You look like death warmed up.
Yeah, I'm always rough out on boats, mate. I think it was probably that last pint I had last night.
Yeah, and the 6 before it. 2:30 and the 12 Clear.
On reaching the seabed, the divers have clipped onto the shot line but can't see the wreck. The shot line was dropped too far from the shipwreck and the visibility is fairly poor. Unlike the rest of the divers, Kevin and Gary failed to see the wreck off to the side as they descended and have now had to swim hard to reach it. As the shot landed on the seabed rather than on top of the wreck itself, they're now deeper than intended. Their air consumption is already higher than planned. If more care had been taken when initially dropping the shot, this problem could have been avoided. Always ensure the shot line is accurately positioned, so that the divers can then descend straight onto the wreck. Divers accustomed to holiday diving in clearer waters abroad are usually less affected by nitrogen narcosis there than they would be in the murky waters of the UK. The brain copes far better with narcosis when it can focus on a wide field of vision in clear visibility. Therefore, deeper dives in foreign waters may seem considerably easier. The danger of this is that it may then give divers more confidence to dive to similar depths in UK waters. Onset of narcosis can then occur at shallower depths than expected because of decreased underwater visibility and light levels. The divers are now totally absorbed in trying to remove the porthole they've found. They're so preoccupied that they're failing to monitor their air supply and dive time. They haven't noticed that they've dropped their reel line. Using a lot of effort underwater, especially on a deep dive, will drastically increase air consumption. A hangover or seasickness can also accelerate problems by increasing the risk of dehydration and nitrogen narcosis, consequently slowing down the diver's reaction times. The other divers have started to surface and return to the boat. On a deep dive in poor visibility, it's easy to become disorientated. Panic can soon set in when things start to go wrong. As Kevin is out of air and can't find his reel line in the decreased visibility, there's no time for them to find the shot line for a safe ascent to the surface. Nitrogen narcosis is now about to take its toll. In their present state of anxiety and disorientation, they're rapidly using the remainder of their precious air supply. Simple oversight has now turned quickly into a life-threatening situation. Panic has now set in so badly that Kevin won't accept help from his buddy. And after overinflating his BC, his ascent has become far too rapid and uncontrolled. As he rushes toward the surface, he's not expelling sufficient air from his lungs and will suffer an air embolism. Few divers realize just how small an increase in lung expansion it takes to cause serious injury or even death. Gary is also panicking and ascends rapidly to the surface without any decompression stops. Fortunately, he's remembered to breathe out on the way up, avoiding an embolism. But his rapid rate of ascent and extended bottom time will inevitably result in decompression sickness.
With both divers now on the surface and in obvious distress, the situation will worsen by the minute. If the divers had carried suitable distress signal aids, they'd be more visible and could alert the dive boat.
Has anyone seen Kevin Gary? Where's Kevin Gary?
Oh, I saw him going down the shot, down to the bottom, to the deep part.
Shouldn't they be up yet?
Should have been.
Waiting first.
Should have been back up by now.
Where are they?
They should be back.
Did anyone see them down there?
I saw them going down to someone's at the bottom of the shot.
How much
They
air
came
did
off the
have?
line though, didn't they? Didn't they come off the line?
Only at the bottom.
But how much air did they have? They didn't have that much, did they? They didn't have that much more than the rest of you.
What's that, Skip? Got a couple of divers missing. They're 10 minutes overdue now.
There's no bubbles. We can't see any bubbles.
Well, I don't really want to leave the shot line in case they're doing more decompressions coming up.
Yeah,
We can't see any bubbles.
Well, I reckon I'd better call the Coast Guard then, be on the safe side and get some assistance out. Pan. This is the dive boat Albatross, this is the dive boat Albatross, this is the dive boat Albatross.
Pan Albatross, this is Silent Coast Guard. This is Silent Coast Guard, Roger, and your position please? 50, Silent Coast Guard, Roger. 2 missing divers, and how long have they been overdue, over? This is Silent Coast Guard, Roger, overdue for 12 minutes, and how much air do they have on board? Pan Albatross, this is Silent Coast Guard, Roger. Just for information, the Coast Guard helicopter India Juliet has been tasked to a medevac, but we are launching the Bembridge lifeboat to your assistance, over. Bembridge lifeboat, Silent Coast Guard, you're launched on service to the dive vessel Albatross, in position, 50 degrees. We've spoken to the skipper of the dive vessel and are upgrading this incident to a mayday, over.
He came up too quick.
He came up too
I
quick.
couldn't keep up with him.
Okay, well we must be on the surface then.
On the floor then.
Let's get some people up on the bow to look for the other diver.
Now the situation's really serious. One diver recovered with suspected bends, another still missing, probably with an embolism. Both are going to need urgent medical treatment at the hyperbaric.
Give you some oxygen.
Southern Coast Guard, this is the Bembridge lifeboat Shipwreck. We recovered 2 divers. The first diver suspected bends, the second we suspect is embolised. Over.
Hear me.
Southern Coast Guard, this is the Bembridge lifeboat. Could we have the ETA of the helicopter, please? Over.
Bembridge lifeboat, Silent Coast Guard, Rescue India Juliet has refuelled and is proceeding. ETA 05 minutes. Over.
The lifeboat now has both divers aboard. It is heading at full speed to rendezvous with the helicopter. In emergencies such as this, speed is of the absolute essence. So the divers must be quickly transferred to the helicopter and flown at low level direct to the hyperbaric unit.
10 foot below, 5 foot below. 3, 2, turning themselves round. Still 2, 1. Through the door. And bring in the midboard. Over midboard. Steady and contact. Looking up. Still looking up. Forward just a touch. Steady, 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 steady. Watching it. Up gently. Clear the deck and clear back and left. That's clear lift. 20 foot below. 50. 10. 5 foot below. Stop watching. Open the door. And bring in the midboard. On the midboard.
The dive marshal or buddy should always accompany the casualties to the hyperbaric unit. If the divers were wearing dive computers, ensure that these stay with them. This gives the medical team ashore immediate access to all relevant dive profiles and incident details. Meanwhile, the rib has suffered engine failure and has lost sight of his divers. The helmsman needs to act quickly before the situation worsens. Fortunately, he spots the first pair, but two are still missing.
You got the Coast Guard's number?
Yeah, fortunately.
Yeah.
Is that on? That's on, isn't it?
Yeah, it's working.
Hold on, I'll just fit it on.
You haven't broken my phone, have you?
Yeah. And what it is,
you've got no signal.
There's no signal on it.
Yeah, it won't work. You're not going to get anywhere.
What is
Yeah,
it?
well, for crying out loud.
No, you have a go.
Let's keep using the eyes.
The only thing we
I'll
can do
keep
is
this
I'll move
going.
down so we can get a signal
Use the
from.
eyes.
If I go further down, so we can get a signal there.
Do a big sweep then. Do something.
After more heated discussion, it's decided to go ashore and use a call box. Meanwhile, the divers are left drifting away with the tide.
Now we have a situation with two divers missing, probably drifting away in the tide, and no clear plan of action. The boat left harbour with an unreliable radio and the mobile phone can't get a signal. If they'd taken the time to check all their equipment and followed the correct procedures, they wouldn't be having these problems now.
Southern Coast Guard, good afternoon. Yes, you have two divers missing. All right, in what position were the divers? I will send a Coast Guard helicopter and a lifeboat to that situation.
Fortunately, the rescue services are still in the area and are retasked to search for the missing divers. The inshore lifeboat picks up one, cold and frightened, but otherwise unharmed. The second is picked up by the helicopter, suffering from mild hypothermia. She's immediately phoned to hospital for treatment.
Steady. We'll strap over, fasten about. Left to one. Steady. 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 Wedging in. Up gently. Clear the water and clear forward.
Things are far more serious for our two deep divers.
Tell me what happened. What's going on?
I cannot see clear.
Yeah?
I can't feel the legs.
Okay. Can we get a suit off? Yep. Okay, what we're going to do now is check your sensation.
Gary is being assessed by the hyperbaric doctor.
I feel okay?
Will need
How about right
urgent
here?
recompression in the chamber.
Okay, good enough. All right, you tell me when you can't feel it. Okay, tell me where you can't feel it.
No.
Okay, good. Same thing here. Can you feel me here?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me when you can't.
No.
Okay. Lift your leg up as far as you can. Is that the best you can do?
Can't move it.
Okay, all right. Okay, straighten your leg. Okay. Push down the gas. Okay, pull your toes up towards your nose.
Hopefully he may recover after lengthy treatment, but there's a definite risk of paralysis from the waist down.
Switch for you. Yeah. Inside Sarah coffee shop.
Yeah, there's no problem.
Okay, I'm leaving in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Leaving now.
Sarah, could we have Gary back on there too, please?
Sadly, Kevin has not been so lucky. He's not survived his rapid ascent, and nothing could be done to save him. What started as a fun day out has now turned to tragedy. This dive was too deep, too soon.
Think of your personal responsibility to yourself and your family. Don't think that it'll never happen to you. It could. Just imagine the immense pain and distress you'd cause your family and friends if one of the casualties shown in this incident was you.
What went wrong? Although these divers were fairly experienced, they were obviously unprepared for such a deep dive on air and had not sufficiently worked up to it. The nitrogen content in compressed air under pressure becomes increasingly narcotic the deeper you dive, and can lead to dizziness, disorientation, and even blackouts. Nitrogen narcosis can occur as shallow as 25 meters in some cases, dependent on the frequency of deep dives carried out beforehand. Always work up to deeper dives on compressed air. The term raptures of the deep has been used in the past to describe nitrogen narcosis, but it can be a very unpleasant sensation. The effects of it at depth can be both unnerving and potentially lethal. Divers can be easily distracted, becoming careless and unconcerned about monitoring their air supply and bottom times. Narcosis is also accelerated by poor underwater visibility, and a few drinks too many on the previous night can increase the chances of being affected during a dive. Hangovers, dehydration, and diving definitely don't mix. And simple problems can soon escalate into a serious situation. Bravado and peer pressure can also play a significant part in causing diving accidents. Divers in a group will sometimes take chances they would not normally take, just to keep up with the others. This is unsafe practice, as each individual should always be aware of their own capabilities and never be influenced by others. It could otherwise lead to tragedy.
Never give in to peer pressure. A good quote to remember is, "It's far better to be on the boat wishing you were in the water than in the water wishing you were back in the boat." Always dive within your personal limitations.
Anchor or position the dive boat carefully and ensure that the shot line lands directly on or very close to the wreck. If anchoring to the wreck itself, make sure that the anchor line has a quick release buoy attached so that it can be let go rapidly to pick up stray or drifting divers. Attach your reel line to the shot so that you can find your way back for a safe ascent. Always stay attached. You then have an exit route back to the boat and a line for a controlled ascent or decompression stops if needed. Whenever possible, it's advisable to phone the Coast Guard with your dive plan and other details before leaving harbour. A well-organised dive marshal should always go through the safety equipment and carry out a pre-dive check. He should carefully check that all divers aboard are adequately trained and have worked up sufficiently to any deeper dives. Divers should always be familiar with their equipment and capable of using it properly in panic situations. Adequate training for handling increased task loading is essential should things start to go wrong. Although dive computers are normally very reliable nowadays, they should always be backed up with calculations from conventional decompression tables. Carry oxygen. This can be a lifesaver if someone suffers decompression sickness or other medical problems. Try to carry an experienced diving first aider aboard when possible. On-board safety equipment is vital. In addition to other diving-related aids, such as an alternative air supply, strobe light, reel line, SMB, diver visual aids and telescopic flags. If you're diving from a rib, the same safety checks apply. Before leaving, check the engine and other equipment, make sure the VHF radio batteries are charged, and never rely solely on a mobile phone. When drift diving, it's strongly recommended that a secondary backup boat is also used. Should the main surface support vessel then suffer engine failure, drifting divers can be safely recovered by the other boat. Without two surface support boats, drift diving can be unsafe. Make sure you've checked the tide times before you leave.
Okay, so
The surface boat used should always be well maintained and carry all relevant safety equipment. Why not contact the RNLI for a free sea check for your vessel? Preparation is the key to safe practice, and time spent checking equipment before leaving harbour can avoid serious problems later. Don't forget, anything removed from a shipwreck has to be declared to the receiver of wreck.
Diving's an enjoyable sport, but correct training and appropriate safety guidelines are essential to avoid accidents. Always ensure that you dive within your own capabilities and only at the depths you've worked up to. Let's make diving fun, not fatal.